Looking back over the course of the past year, one cannot help but notice the demeanor of abortion advocates. The journey from the leaked Dobbs decision a year ago to the overturning of Roe v. Wade, to the ballot initiative, to the bill before us today, which repeals the final barrier blocking unlimited abortion in the state of Michigan. There is a sense of accomplishment in the tone of abortion advocates. It is the belief that after this vote, it is finished. I cannot help but notice these are the same final words of our Lord Jesus Christ that he said on the cross before he gave up his spirit. The true irony in these words is that at that moment, it seemed as if death had won, when in fact the opposite was true. It was not death that had won, but rather it was life that conquered death through Christ's resurrection. In that same manner, abortion advocates believe today that death will have won. Objectively speaking, even I can see their logic. The pendulum has swung so far, it is difficult to see any path back to the protections we had for the unborn, even in the Roe era, which was less than a year ago. While we consider repealing Michigan's prohibition of the abortion statute, here are a few thoughts we should also consider. When does life begin? Does each man and woman have a soul? If so, when do they receive that soul? And where did that soul come from? These are not questions that can be answered scientifically, but only through faith and reason. To the Christian faithful, the answers to these questions are that God is the creator of everything, visible and invisible, which includes our bodies and souls, and that life begins in the womb at conception. Those that prefer to ignore or compartmentalize these questions are naive and foolish at best, and at worst, they are cold-hearted and callous. Every human being that has ever existed has passed through all stages of development in their mother's womb. To not recognize that we bear the responsibility to care after others in the same way that we ourselves were cared for is total blindness. Not to even recognize that an unborn child deserves to live even moments before it comes into this world is shockingly heartless, irrational, and an unjustifiable position. That all being said, I, for one, will not lose faith, because nothing is impossible for the Lord, and that he hears the cries of the voiceless, and he will not abandon them. Even for a time, while Christ was dead, hanging on a cross, it seemed a total loss then too. And God was able to turn evil into good. For us Christian believers, we must hold firm to that faith now and pray. I was walking through the hall in our office building across the street earlier this week, and I was stopped in my tracks when I saw a sign in the doorway. It said, "Abortion is health care." That is certainly some creative marketing. Abortion is not health care for the unborn child, 30,000 of whom were killed in the womb in Michigan in 2021 alone. Yes, 30,000. 30,074 to be exact. To put that in perspective, I represent in the Senate 18th District some wonderful small towns like Lowell, Hastings, Marshall, Middleville, Lake Odessa, and Wayland. More babies were aborted each year in Michigan than the populations of those 6 towns combined. You say abortion is health care. Really? Let's take a look at Senate Bill 37. This bill eliminates listing as abortion as a crime in state law. I don't support doing that, but I can understand why that's coming up in the aftermath of Proposal 3. However, this bill does not stop there. It also eliminates the crime of abortion resulting in the death of a female. That is a dangerously and irresponsible step that potentially opens the door for a bad actor to literally get away with murder. How is that good or safe for women? I doubt the voters intended for Proposal 3 to allow that type of crime to go unpunished. We are not protecting women in this bill. If anything, we're putting them in danger. What this legislation really seeks to do is protect abortionists, not the women seeking their so-called help. An unfortunate reality is that abortions have been allowed in Michigan for a long time. But the bills before us today go beyond even the status quo. This legislation goes beyond reinstating what was in place under Roe v. Wade. This bill, for example, takes away protections for women. As I mentioned earlier, but it bears repeating, the number of abortions in Michigan has increased for 5 consecutive years. There are now more abortions in Michigan per year than at any time since the mid-1990s. Abortions have increased 35% since 2009. So what is the real intent of this exercise being carried out in the Senate today? It is a sad reminder that some so-called pro-choice Michiganders, it's not enough for abortion to be legal. It has to be commemorated and even celebrated. It's yet another attempt to normalize and marginalize the tragic death of an unborn child, or 30,074 unborn children in 2021 alone. It is yet another attempt for abortion supporters to try to convince everyone that all of this death is somehow okay. In this recent State of the State address, our governor stated, it is the intention for Michigan to use Michigan's abortion status as an economic development marketing tool. How's that marketing going to be read? Come to Michigan, where it's easier to kill an unborn child than Ohio or Indiana? I, for one, cannot participate in this. I cannot dance on the graves of over 30,000 Michigan babies. I cannot support this bill or this package. I urge a no vote, and I ask that my remarks be printed in the journal. Thank you. I hear over and over again from supporters of abortion and Senate Bill 39 that they are pro-choice. Here's your chance to prove it. Support a woman's choice to keep her baby or promote adoption, if that is her decision. This amendment would tie bar Senate Bills 117 and 118 to Senate Bill 39. Senate Bills 117 and 118 would provide $22.2 million to a wide variety of beneficial, life-sustaining initiatives. $10 million would support adoption. Another $2 million would provide adoption-related tax credits to make it more affordable for growing families. Another $7.7 million would benefit maternal health programs, supporting the well-being of mothers and their babies. In addition, $1.5 million would promote pregnancy resource centers that provide ultrasounds, counseling, and other essential services for expectant mothers. Another $1 million would support services assisting students who are parents at universities and community colleges. Supporting this amendment would not affect or restrict so-called abortion rights in any way. It is simply acknowledging and supporting the fact that there is more than one choice. I have sponsored a legislative proposal like this twice before. Both times it was approved by the legislature, but vetoed by Governor Whitmer. Rejecting this support for adoption and maternal health would lead only to one conclusion: that those who are against this legislation are not actually pro-choice. They support only a choice that leads to the death of an unborn child. I continue to hope against hope that we're not a lost society that glorifies abortion and the death of an unborn child. It was not long ago that even the most ardent abortion rights supporters acknowledged that abortion should be rare. Yet, as I look at the statistics in Michigan, one can easily become discouraged. The number of abortions reported in Michigan has increased for 5 consecutive years. There were more than 30,000 abortions in Michigan in 2021 alone. That is the most since the mid-1990s. Abortions have increased 35% since 2009. It breaks my heart, but people are not being denied access to abortion. Our state is, however, struggling to find enough families to adopt children into their homes, and we have an opportunity to change that. Please support this amendment. Please prove to the people of Michigan that you are truly pro-choice, including the choice that saves a human life. This amendment would tie bar a recently introduced package of bills, Senate Bills 106 through 118, to Senate Bill 39, to Senate Bill 39. Michigan voters approved Proposal 3, but that does not mean we must have unregulated abortion for anyone, at any reason, at any time. The legislature can and should still have a say. Many voters were under the impression that they were restoring the status quo under Roe v. Wade when they supported Proposal 3. However, some of these bills before us today cement the fact that abortion supporters are moving well beyond Roe v. Wade. This amendment would maintain common sense state regulations that were in place when Roe v. Wade was in place. It also strengthens some penalties associated with breaking these laws to emphasize their importance as abortion becomes more unregulated. Among these provisions are tougher felony penalties for Michigan laws that have been in place for many years. The ban on partial birth abortion, a gruesome and barbaric practice where a child is dismembered as it emerges from the womb. Prohibiting the coercion of a woman to have an abortion against her will. Prohibiting that a baby that is born alive to die from neglect. Preventing an abortion on a minor without a parent's consent. This amendment would also add a few necessary protections to state law. For example, after fetal viability has been reached, an abortion could not be performed solely to prevent the birth of a Down syndrome baby. Other provisions would allow pharmacists and farm techs to refuse to participate in an abortion for professional or religious reasons. This amendment would also protect the important work done by pregnancy resource centers and ensure that people are not forced to pay for someone else's abortion in private insurance or public plans like those offered through the Affordable Care Act. Finally, this amendment would support choices other than that which ends with the death of a child. The plan would provide more than $22 million to support maternal health and provide resources to promote and incentivize adoption. I ask for a yes vote on this amendment.